What's up guys, Houndish here, and today it is the weekly reset for Destiny 2, hopefully. I say that because downtime for the update today has been extended before we even actually got to the weekly reset, so if you're watching this video early on, it may be that the game is still offline, but hopefully that issue will be sorted soon. And yes, it's not particularly surprising at this point that we're having yet more issues on reset days, but we do have the patch notes for update 7102, which I believe is only like the second hotfix since the launch of the season. And so there are a bunch of changes affecting activities, crucible, raids and dungeons, but we also have fixes for exotics, armor pieces, weapons, abilities and even loot drops. So I figured we'd jump in and break down the patch notes while we wait for the game to come back online. And as always, if you guys enjoy the video today, a rating below really does help us out, but otherwise, let's get into it. And so initially looking at the patch notes right here, for the Crucible, Bungie say they fixed an issue where the Dazzling Iridescence Trials emblem could be awarded from the Flawless chest without completing the necessary requirements. And so for players who've already acquired the emblem, they'll need to complete the requirements after the patch goes live in order to equip it. Not sure if that includes players who've earned the emblem legitimately. Slightly vague in the patch notes right there, I guess we will find out. But they also fixed an issue with spawn trapping that could occur on the Meltdown map. Up next though for raids and dungeons, bit of a cheese fix right here, but they fixed a problem where players can damage bosses in the Ghosts of the Deep dungeon through immunity shields. So we'll be cheesing stuff a little bit less right there. A pretty inevitable fix, but next for gameplay and investment and armor pieces, they say for the Gaia Falcon's Hauberk, Reserve Overshield now deploys when a player uses Ensnaring Slam, which is an interesting change, but additionally, we get a bunch of the fixes. So they fixed the problem where Kepri's Horn could disable various non-enemy objects. That resulted in some pretty cheesy stuff inside of PvP. Plus they fixed the issue where Vesper of Radius's effects were triggering on things other than casting a rift. Plus, one where point contact cannon brace would create lightning strikes on melees other than Thunderclap. Then they fixed the problem where becoming frozen would disable Arbor Warden's exotic perk, as well as fixing an issue where the Arbor Warden would cause the Juggernaut aspect not to interact with your class ability energy correctly. There's also one here where they fixed an issue causing Sunbracers to not improve solar grenades, one where Helm of Saint 14 wasn't providing any effects. So it will actually do something now. Plus they fixed an issue where Verity's Brow wasn't functioning in PvP. Another where no backup plans were creating a buff to non-shotgun damage in certain situations. And then we get to Arthur's Embrace, where the buff icon wasn't appearing in the HUD in PvP. And finally, the artifact perks Amped Up and Electric Armor no longer have their perk names switched. So a mixed bag of changes there, mainly fixes. And yes, presumably for the disabled exotics, the ones that have been turned off, we will be able to use them again once the patch goes live. So give us any thoughts that you have about those, but next we have weapons, and they say they fixed an issue where some older Iron Banner special and power weapons had lost their scope glint, and they fixed the Last Wish deep sight thing, so that was an issue where purchasing a Last Wish deep sight weapon from Hawthorne would unintentionally award bonus pattern progress on top of the progress provided by consuming the deep sight on the weapon itself. And then they increased the size of the red dot in the Mercurial Overreach's scope to respond to player feedback. I finally called it Overreach instead of Overwatch, which I've been doing for weeks at this point. And then they reduced the collective action weapon perks damage against Guardians to 10%, down from 20%, so that only affects PvP, and it is a change they've given us a heads up on. And an interesting one here is that they changed the Navigator's intrinsic trait icon. Of course, that's the weapon from Ghosts of the Deep, the exotic. I'm not sure why they've changed it, but there we go. Moving on to abilities, they fixed an issue where certain thrown projectiles were able to over-penetrate allied Titan barricades. I believe that was also affecting things like bubbles, so that's no longer a thing. Plus they fixed a problem where the arc jolt damage to minor combatants was lower than intended following the scaling changes that they released at the start of the season, so hopefully jolt feeling just a little bit better against lower tier enemies at least. And as we get onto Commerce and Eververse, right here, they fixed an issue where the Twitch sub-bounty emblem, Pulsar Approaching, is not reacquirable or equipable, so players will be able to use that, and for Triumphs, they say the second Reckoning Triumph now displays the correct weapon names. On top of that, the Spend Salvage Keys Triumph now correctly progresses when a salvage key is spent, instead of erroneously progressing the Spend Deep Dive Keys Triumph. And finally, they fixed an issue on the ambitious Angler Triumph where all players were getting credit for one player catching an exotic fish. So no more cheesy fish triumph progress, I suppose. Didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest. Here though, last patch notes we've got for general, weekly challenges for Vanguard Ops and Gambit now reward the correct number of exotic engrams. And they say as well that they'll re-enable tier 1 exotic focusing on Master Raoul, so those really terrible stat rolls hopefully will no longer be a thing. But of course at this point we do say hopefully because we're running into quite a few issues with the game, as well as the servers. But for today guys, that's all I've got for you in the patch notes. I'll keep you posted if we ever get back into Destiny 2 with the vendor reset and what's happening this week rewards wise, so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, if you've enjoyed this video, a rating below really does help us out. Feel free as well to get subscribed if you want to be kept up to date with more Destiny content. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.